wellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, featuring your hosts Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today we are talking about why am I sick? Now what we mean by that is starting to question why you are sick at this point in time in that area of your body, what messages it has for you, what to uncover, what are the questions. But at the same time, right, Bridget, if you're on the wellness journey, what does sickness also mean?
Sometimes I think if you're on the wellness journey or if you really value health, it can also feel like you fail. Because, you know, if you've got a high value on health and health kind of is the epitome of your success, right? Then being sick is like, well, hang on, like, what am I not doing right? Where have I failed? And to add to that, if you, you know, see everything as energy and see sickness as a feedback to let you know that you're not on track, then you can also go, okay, well, what's this trying to reveal to me? And end up, you know, analysing it and all that kind of stuff. So I thought this is a really good podcast to explore. And I'd also love to explore, I suppose, Julie's experience, you know, practicing as a naturopath, and I suppose your own evolving view of sickness or health and disease, right? Because I think traditionally, even in natural medicine, there's still a reductionist aspect to it.
But that's my main problem with it.
Yeah.
And I totally get this, because even when I was in practice, when I think about being in practice, you know, 12 years ago, 10 years ago, right at the start of my journey, I used to fear getting sick because of what that meant about what I wasn't doing.
Yeah, and how that looked to your clients? Like...
Well, I cancelled clients. So if I was sick, this is how intense it was, right? If I was sick, it wasn't okay for me to be sick because a naturopath doesn't get sick.
Wow.
How can I be a wellness coach person, you know, leader and be sick with the people that I was trying to teach wellness to?
Yeah.
So I used to almost put up this curtain and go, and I know there's heaps of wellness practitioners that do this.
Yeah.
You're sick, so you cancel patients and then you just
hibernate
next time you see them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it always was, if I'm sick, where have I not been looking after myself? So where am I lacking vitamins, minerals in my diet? What's been happening? Have I been partying too much, being on the coffee too much, not sleeping enough? Like, it was always, what am I not doing?
Enough of. You know, what am I not doing right?
Yeah. But what I actually now look at sickness with is I actually love it. And I love it for a couple of reasons. I love it, one, from a physical perspective, because you cannot have wellness unless you have sickness.
Yes. Because
sickness, in essence, on a purely physical level, creates almost like a trial run for your body. It keeps it like a car having a, you know, tune up. It keeps your immune system and your body in tune and in check with how to handle disease and bugs and whatever. So theoretically, you shouldn't end up with the really big stuff because your body's trained and used to noticing the little stuff, and it has its systems that, you know, work really well and fire off.
Yeah.
So sickness serves in that it tunes up our immune systems to keep them running healthy, which is what a healthy body needs. I also love sickness because I feel like it is always the thing that comes in, particularly to a woman's life, that puts the brakes on and says, stop a minute, slow down, Nellie, let's see what's going on here. Most often it's because you need so desperately some personal time, some reflective time, some inward time, or a reason not to be doing what you're doing now that isn't you making that conscious choice.
Yeah. It's your subconscious doing it. So you are doing it, but you're not aware that you're doing it.
But you don't have to take, see, this is the thing with it, right? You don't have to own the responsibility of saying, I just need to stop, or I need a break, or I don't want to do this, whatever, X, Y, Z.
So you create a
I can't do it because I'm sick.
Yeah.
Or if I'm sick, it's okay to rest.
Yeah.
But if I'm in inverted commas well, it's not okay for me to rest. So I love sickness for that, because I just feel like when you can ask yourself, or someone, have a coach ask you these questions when you're sick, it is like hitting the nail on the head. And the realizations that come out of sickness, I think, are profound.
It's quite beautiful, really. And it's the body's way of loving you, because the body is listening to you
Yes.
and your needs, even if you can't consciously do that.
Yes.
And women have often, especially if you're trying to do 10,000 things at once, are enormously capable of trying to do a zillion things and put off their own needs until they get hit by a truck and out with the flu or out with a terribly sore throat or, whatever it is that means that they have to rest.
Yes.
And that there is no looking after anybody else. It's just you needing to rest.
How do I get through here?
Yeah.
Yeah. You become a priority.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what you prioritize in your life. So you won't necessarily prioritize the green smoothies or the organic food or the supplements or the whatever it is that you want to be able to do but don't prioritize in your life. But if you're sick, you will. So it's also, right, one of the questions would be, one is, why am I sick? And we'll go into that on an emotional level. What is it revealing to me? But two is, what am I getting out of being sick right now?
Yeah, what are the benefits I'm getting?
That I wasn't previously getting yesterday. What am I doing now that I wasn't doing yesterday?
Yeah, what am I saying is okay because I'm sick that I wouldn't have allowed myself to do or have before?
Yes. Or how are those around me responding to me on an emotional or physical level that when I'm well, they don't respond to me right? So this one I find really interesting because these are the women who say to you, no, I'm a doer, I'm on my own, da-da-da-da. So in birth, I don't worry about that. I'm just going to be walking around. Everyone can just leave me alone. I just need to do my thing. And then you can't get them off the bed because they actually love the attention that sickness brings them. Now, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing.
No.
But it's a wounding, right? It's what is the emotion that is okay for you to be sick because of the amount of love or acceptance or vulnerability or attention that you receive that you can't, in your inverted commas well state, ask for or receive. That when you're sick or you have a diagnosis or you're so sick that the doctor needs to see you, or that you need to take drugs or that you had to rush to hospital overnight emergency for, that creates everyone, your tribe around you, to have a reaction that you desperately, deeply need, but one, don't ask for or receive when you're well.
Yes. And this is a really interesting one to go back and, as you're saying this, I'm going back and looking at my own childhood. It's interesting to look at your own childhood and the relationship that being sick gave you with your parents.
Yes.
And also with your own children, how you change your tune to your children when they get sick.
Yes.
Because we all, as we're talking about here, we don't always realise the benefits that we get from being sick and why we might subconsciously create illness to get connection. Children are brilliant at this.
They are.
So children will create illness and colds and flus and things like that to get connection. So a way for them to not need that as much is to give them an enormous amount of connection and love when they're well, and really love up on them then. It's kind of a side note. And kids get sick for a whole host of reasons. But I think back to my own childhood and how much my mum just used to stop everything whenever I was sick and just nurture me so much. And it was beautiful. And I probably got sick because I felt I really needed that. And that was the only way that I knew how to get that presentness from her, because she was busy working. And, I think we want to come at this from a point of view of saying, while mainstream thinking says that disease and sickness is bad or wrong, it's actually just as relevant and right as being well is.
It totally is.
It's just part of the spectrum, and that it absolutely serves us in our connection, in our growth, in our journey.
It serves us physically as much as it serves us emotionally.
Yeah.
And at the same time, heals our inner child's stuff.
Totally.
Right? So that whole concept of I receive more attention from a child perspective when I was well, right? You might be the third child who for the most part was swept along with your siblings and, life is hugely busy. But when you were sick, as you were saying, the world stops and it revolves around you.
And I mean, sometimes
as an adult, that patterns you.
And even, because I know sometimes, Jules, with your kids, if they get sick and, you have to be home and you're retreating, you get benefits from your kids being sick. And as
I love that too. Oh my God, I love that. I have the perfect story for that.
Okay, let's go into the story.
So I've only done one post, but more is coming. So the last week of the school holidays, my eldest daughter got sick, and then the week after my youngest daughter got sick, and then my husband got sick. So I was surrounded by these really sick people with whatever virus this was. In the process of that, of being stuck in the house and having my hate on for it, I received massive amount of inspiration and motivation to change that shit up, and I started renovating my home. So, and I was stuck in the house. And in fact, my youngest, who, as you probably know from other podcasts, is full on, was so sick, with so feverish that she basically just was like crushed out or like asleep all day.
Instead of needing to be attached to your hip, she was
like, so whatever room I was in, she basically just slept on that bed.
Yeah.
And I like painted 4 rooms, rearranged furniture, and completely shifted the vibe of my house. And at the end of all of that week, which was also, can I say, like 4 nights of sleepless hideousness, but at the end of that week, the gratitude, I could almost kiss the ground, because I now have this house that I just adore being in, that by being sick, she gave me or gifted me the space and the freedom to create, which had she been well, I would, 1, not have had the motivation or the inspiration to do, and 2, no way she would have left me alone to do that.
No.
How could you possibly paint a house with a
toddler?
2-year-old?
Yeah, unless it,
So, thank you, Lola, for being so deathly sick.
Yes.
Because that totally served me.
Yeah.
And I wonder, on one level, didn't I bring that in?
Well, yeah, and I remember having this conversation with somebody once, because my son, touch wood, really, although, sickness serves right, he's been quite a well child, and one day he was just a little bit off, and I was kind of looking for it out because I didn't feel like going to work. And so we had a sick day because he was sick, and he wasn't well, but he probably could have gone, right? How much do we do that?
Yeah. Sickness serves.
Yeah, it does.
So let's talk about the why. So if we're looking at the benefits and what are you getting now that you weren't previously getting, when you figure out what that is in a list format, the flip to flipping sickness on its head is to then start to expand those things that really is your soul trying to get you to recognise that you need to be an equal, balanced, soul on the journey and trajectory that you're heading on. You need to awaken and expand these things that you're now getting from a negative perspective with sickness that you weren't previously yesterday. So when you figure out what that list is, then it's working on the day-to-day vulnerabilities of how to expand, ask for and receive
and
things.
And it's, I think you touched on this, it's understanding the common thread. Like, some people might be particularly prone to tonsillitis or particularly prone to certain conditions. And that's not a mistake there. Like, that particular condition is a feedback to show you an area of your life that you're not opening up in, or, a negative charge that you have around a certain thing. Like we've talked about this before, frequent sore throats, tonsillitis, not speaking your truth, not speaking your voice. Your voice is hindered. Your communication is hindered. So it's about asking yourself some questions around, what am I not being truthful about to myself or to others? What am I shutting down? What part of myself am I not communicating? And you can look at every ailment and find some kind of underlying emotion that's part of that.
And if you're a bit stuck on, say, intuitively asking that area of your body what the message is it has for you, so that would be the first step, right, is connecting in with where you're feeling that sickness or that pain or that dis-ease, and asking what the message is that it comes with, or why are you here, what are you teaching me? If you're finding that leap is too great, there are books and resources you can use. So you and I both have the Louise Hay app on our phone, so she has the Heal Your Body book, which now is an app, and so she basically lists all of the areas of the body, and she has what that area of the body means in sickness, and she then has an affirmation to use with it. There's other ones as well. I can't think what the other titles are, but you can look up certainly resources that are going to help you on that first step of what does that area of the body generally relate to on a spiritual or emotional level. And then you need to relate that to how does that apply to my life right now? What is the message it's trying to tell me?
And it's also the side of your body that it's on. So any, kind of any ailment or feeling or illness on your right side is your feminine, and anything on your left side is your masculine. So often they're related to your relationship with somebody significant in your life. So the feminine side will be often a mother, or, if you're a man, it'll be a partner. And then if it's the left-hand side, it's often a partner or a son or a husband or a father. And so, a particular pain in a certain area is really often associated with your perceptions of that relationship or what that person did or didn't do to you and how that has or hasn't served you in your life. And then there can be big questions to uncover, and I think sometimes we can't often do that on our own, but it's about even opening yourself up to that as a potential, you know, feedback for you.
And to keep asking the question, I think you kind of have that question in the back of your mind and you ask it several times throughout the day, because you just have to wait for that moment when you're at your most authentic self, and that ability to channel with your highest self
and your
comes
intuition
through in a very clear message.
Yeah, your intuition will kick in.
Yeah, it totally will.
And you can also call in a challenge around your health if you're really polarized against a certain way. Like, so for me, like, you know, I haven't had antibiotics for, years and years, and have really judged them quite harshly and really felt that, like, you know, the body is a self-healing mechanism. It shouldn't need antibiotics.
And again, funny that your voice is breaking up, Bridget.
That's right.
You still got some stuff to clear there.
I think I do.
But antibiotics, right, so the general theory behind them is that antibiotics wipe out every biotic that's in your body. And we are essentially within our gut. We're a microorganism of multitude. So we're like the Amazonian forest, full of all of these different species and colonizations, that the gut feeds every other system in our body. So there's a lot of wellness practitioners that work specifically on the gut, because the theory is everything comes back to the gut, that the gut is so responsible, gut health is so responsible for how you digest, what you digest, the vitamins, the minerals you take out of it. The basic building blocks of life are created in the gut. So if your gut is not well, how can any other aspect of your body be well, is kind of the theory behind it.
And there's a lot of talk about, you know, this gut-brain connection. So often if you've got an imbalance of bacteria in your gut, sometimes that can lead to mental health issues. However, what I haven't seen yet is what about with what you're thinking is impacting your gut.
100%.
Because there's no, like, people are saying cause
they're going
effect.
one way, not the other.
They're not going the other way.
Yeah.
But I would say that they both have a relationship.
Yes, how does it kill off the biology? I'm just saying what the basic wellness theory of the gut is, and why we, in inverted commas, want to avoid antibiotics. So the idea is antibiotics don't just kill the bug that's the problem, they kill every single bug in your system. So you're then starting from absolute scratch, and usually what happens is then your gut is colonized with a lot of the, in inverted commas, bad bacteria, and then you have a proliferation of issues because you don't have a really well forest.
And that's what happens when people have, you know, recurring issues because they have.
So you're weeding out species. You're just wiping out. It's like, you know, mass destruction on a forest is the theory behind it.
Yep.
So that's why we want to avoid them. And then look, there's a whole lot of, you know, tests and studies around other health ramifications based on the use of antibiotics as well. But we're not, you know, going to sit with that right now.
Yeah.
So the point is, in the wellness industry, antibiotics are nearly the Antichrist.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
So you don't want to go there.
No, it's like,
you know, if you're in the wellness industry, your gut health is like the epitome of wellness. So to be faced with an illness that requires antibiotics is a massive head shift.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And often what you're saying is when you're so polarized that wellness has to look like this and be this, and there's this strict set of rules and guidelines.
There's a dogma around it.
Yes. That you're so polarized that you've lost perspective and gratitude for the opposite.
Yeah.
What happens, Bridget?
You attract in a need to have those, like I just have. So I've just been on a course of antibiotics for a UTI, which I haven't had a UTI, I don't think, ever, which is interesting. And looking up Louise Hay's app for what a UTI is, it says the probable cause is that you're pissed off, usually the opposite sex or a lover, and that you're blaming others. It's a big one.
Oh, ouch.
And so, right, UTI is also really common in women, older women, and Alzheimer's patients, which is classic because Alzheimer's is often, and Alzheimer's and dementia are often a lot of repressed anger, you know, and that isn't expressed. And so, yeah, I've had to embrace the antibiotics because there's a risk in pregnancy, you know, it's a really good idea to take them.
Was that a big head shift for you?
It was, yeah, and I resisted it the first round. So I got a second test just to check for sure that I had that bacteria that I needed to clear, because it was asymptomatic, so I didn't have any symptoms. Yeah. It just came up on a blood test.
Which in itself is interesting.
Yeah.
Because you have it, but you don't really.
Yeah. It's just enough.
Yeah.
Just enough to need the antibiotics.
Yeah.
So I really had to shift my thinking around it because it's a bigger picture thing, right? You know, like we can't look at things in isolation, and it serves the bigger picture for me to take antibiotics. And yes, they may impact the baby, taking antibiotics, but so would not, you know, and so would the emotions that might come up around the fear of what might happen if I didn't take them, you know.
Yep, I do.
So for me, it was, okay, I'm going to take these, and I took them with gratitude. Like, I took each one and really visualized the healing that they were going to give me, as opposed to resenting them. And at the same time, of course, I was taking probiotics, heaps of fermented veg, you know, cutting down my sugar intake, doing all the things that you should do to help balance out your gut. And so, yeah, we'll see what happens. But that's another classic case of surrendering and seeing what life's trying to teach you. And there was learnings in there in me for that, you know, and because I've never, you know, even given my son Panadol or antibiotics or anything like that. Fortunately, at this point, he hasn't needed them, but this serves me in my approach to him as well, should he need those things, because I was able to learn how they've been able to serve me.
I've often said this to clients that, you know, it's great to be on this wellness journey and doing as much as you possibly can on that journey to be as well as is speaking to your soul without a dogma, because, you know, I have a big issue with the dogma about what that's actually hiding and you know, tucking away without being spoken and openly looked at on an emotional or spiritual level or mental. But when you're in that position where you have a child who's, I don't know, your 2-year-old toddler, and they're so sick and their tonsils are so full of pus that no one in the house is sleeping, and it's miserable and they're crying all the time, and your headspace is not in a good place. What is healthier? Is it healthier to keep pushing yourself to do all of the things, the vitamin C, the herbs, the rest time, the, you know, time consoling and holding, the cooking, the preparation, the food, the burnout? Or is it just as healthy to accept the gratitude of modern medicine and do the healing afterwards?
Yes. And I think that that can be applied to so many things, because as you're saying that, I'm thinking, well, what about the whole breast is best thing, the whole breastfeeding thing? Because the same thing could be argued. Like, you and I are both really pro breastfeeding, and we've been fortunate that we've been able to do that. But, you know, sometimes giving that up is the best thing that could possible for that woman, that child, and that family. You know, and the dogma does not serve. The dogma, all the dogma does in supposedly supporting mother and baby, this whole approach can actually really, really, really hurt them, you know? And so I think it's just learning to bring that critical eye to any kind of dogma.
And the thing is, right, it doesn't matter which one you choose. Neither one is better or worse than the other.
No.
It's actually getting to the point of seeing that all of your options are equal. And for you right now, it's what serves you best for you to come out with the most wholehearted version of health, the one that has you feeling empowered and trusted and mentally capable and secure in those choices. Because if you, and I have been there, right, as a mum, if you are killing yourself at the expense of health, killing, you know, in the sense of burning out, just to strive for this one set of rules on what wellness is supposed to be, you're creating just as much disease.
Absolutely.
As if you were doing the opposite.
And I think we touched on this, I think, in our What is Healthy podcast, you know, weeks and weeks back. You know, and often when you get so polarized about that wellness journey, you're just subordinating to some kind of new authority that you've put in your mind as the person who's right, you know, who the person who's to be followed. And often that's just replacing somebody else. You know, previously if you were, you know, had a doctor who you always listened to and always did what the doctor said, and then you realised that wasn't serving you, so you threw that out, and now you've chosen a new messiah, you know. And I mean, those things are great, but it's also, both of them are really trying to get you into balance.
And it's the process that happens in between, right? So there's no right or wrong choice. You can't judge either choice, because both choices have equal amount of disease and health. So it comes down to what is the process and the soul growth and the awareness or shifts that happen within you on the path to making that choice. That is where the healing is. And that is the point of those choices being put in front of you. That is the purpose of illness, is what is the process that has you growing. It's actually not the thing that you do at the end. it's the evolution of how you get to the thing at the end that's important. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So this is the point of sickness, right? So, Bridget, really, who cares whether you've chosen antibiotics? And maybe you fucked your flora, or maybe you haven't because you've got a different belief
Maybe you
system.
fucked your flora.
Maybe you can just heal it, or your body isn't affected because of the way that you've dealt with it or the belief systems you have.
And I mean, if we talk about, like, you know, we touch a bit on this idea of, you know, our cells always, like, our cells are regenerating constantly. You know, our body is a vibration of our soul, and which is made up of our values, emotions, beliefs, all of those kinds of things, which can heal or hinder us, really, like, in terms of the way that we're viewing health or disease. And so it's almost, if you're changing the conversation with yourself and choosing to see the antibiotics as healing, then they will heal you.
Yes.
You know, as opposed to seeing them as poisoning you.
Yes. Isn't that the thing?
Because it's what your mind believes is so incredibly powerful. So these things are healing, man.
It's kind of like vaccinations, Bridget.
It is. It sure is. And that's another one, right? So if you see,
I know, that's why I put it there, because I know you're processing it.
Yeah, I really am processing it. Because, I mean, if you see a chiropractor and you're really into that philosophy, then vaccination's like the devil, generally.
It is.
But it really serves as well, you know, and they work. You know, we can't argue that they don't work. They do work. And, yeah, I have some issues with some of the ones that are on the schedule because I don't think that the efficacy is proven. But, you know, again, there's learnings to be had there. And
again, it's the intent and the healing that you bring with it, right? So it's the belief systems that you have in the way that prevent you or make you make those choices. And if you're having an emotional reaction to that, then that's the problem, because that's the wounding. It's not actually the thing.
No. The thing is the catalyst for your
awareness
and the equilibration that you need to do around something.
Yes, it is. It's the highlighting of wounding here. Come take a closer look.
Well, so it's like whatever you're labeling as wrong or bad, you have an incomplete awareness of that it's wise to somehow balance out.
Yes.
Just like anything you think is right or perfect or the best way also shows you have an incomplete awareness. And we all do this. Like, we're doing this constantly every second of the day. We're pretty much never not doing this because that's how we live. That's how we filter our world. That's how we decide what we're going to do in this world.
But the more that you process on that path, the greater and faster your soul growth is.
Yeah.
And I think the more, inverted commas, healthy your life becomes because of the wholeness that it brings.
I think you're also going to access wisdom a lot quicker because you're able to see the other side and make decisions knowing both sides, but being comfortable with the decision you're making in the way that you're choosing.
And I think it really shifts dynamics with your community and the people around you, because all of a sudden there's not that sense of judgment or that sense of trigger buttons with those people, because everything is perfect or equal, right? There is no right or wrong. I have what I do for me because it serves me best and I understand my reasons for that. But I also see why the person next to me chooses the opposite. I like 100% get it.
That's been a big journey for me, actually, and just like loving that everyone's on their own journey, and that whenever I get plugged in with someone, it's never about them, it's about what that's trying to reveal to me about what I think about something. And I've noticed how I've become less plugged in on certain things that would have plugged me in a lot. And that's growth, you know.
That is growth.
That's shifting.
That's a benchmark to see how you're going, is how much are you operating off of emotional triggers and how much are you feeling secure in your space.
In your own choices and your own way without having to prove them to anybody else. So let's recap.
Yes, let's go back through it. So you're that gorgeous mama who is now either sick herself or has one of her babies sick. What is the process that you start if you're an awakened soul headed on this journey? The first question is, Bridget, as you had just said to me earlier, was what is going on for me right now? What is this telling me? And having just a quiet moment to check in and ask your soul.
And asking yourself with that, in a loving way, not a kind of beating yourself up, damn it, you're sick, you know, like harden up kind of attitude. It's really about, you know, seeing that sickness as a messenger. You know, your body really is your subconscious mind. It's seen a reason for this for you, and it's about how can you love yourself for giving that to yourself, you know, for creating that reason to slow down, for that reason to retreat, for that reason to connect with those you love more closely.
Or receive what?
Yeah.
Because often it's in the receiving that the gold is for most mothers that I see that are sick. And then I think comes in the practical stuff. So I'm not also sitting here as the, you know, naturopath / pleasure nutritionist saying, well, it really doesn't matter what you take or what you eat or whatever, because, you know, it's all mental. Because the path and the choices that you make on wellness also open up and shift that wellness journey. So it is also checking in and honouring what it is that you need right now. Do I need to, you know, have the ginger and lemon tea? Do I need to go and see that practitioner that makes me feel amazing? Do I need to spend the money now that I didn't last week on vitamin C and organic juices? It's checking back in with that need, because the path to wellness is also aligned with our physical body. So when we're treating our body like a temple without dogma, in whatever way that feels pleasurable and honouring to our goddess, is also the path of wellness. And when you combine, right, this is the whole thing that I'm trying to create with the pleasure nutritionist, is when you combine the reverence for the goddess that you are and that you house within your body, wellness becomes part of that journey so effortlessly and so soul aligned that it is ultimately an awakening journey of the divine feminine.
Yeah.
But it starts with the pleasure and the honouring and the listening to our deepest desires as women and mothers and souls on a journey. And it co-aligns so often with the wellness path, because wellness is a shedding of layers on a physical level, which always aligns with the spiritual one.
And inadvertently that journey opens up to a spiritual one.
Yes, it does. So I really deeply want you to think about what the nourishment is that your goddess desires and needs, and give yourself the permission and the space to receive that.
I think a lot of it is also about respecting yourself enough to give yourself that permission.
And here's the kicker, right? You want the people around you to do it for you. You're just going to keep waiting. You actually have to, this is funny, in inverted commas, man up enough.
Love that you used a masculine word like man up.
Woman up enough. To go and get it for yourself. Because the minute you get it for yourself, you've shifted the energy, and I guarantee those around you will follow your lead. But you have to be the goddess of creation in what you need.
Yeah. Because no one else is going to give you something that you're not willing to give yourself.
100%. So goddesses, what can you give yourself this week, or in this illness, or in this phase of sickness, and what are the benefits that you can receive and the growth that you can go on in this process? And we would love for you to share that journey with us if you feel called, or just to speak about the revelations that you've received in embracing your, in inverted commas, sickness, which is really your wellness and your path to wholeness. And please connect in with us. So that's on Facebook /Nourishing the Mother. We have our retreat coming up on the 5th and 6th of March in Melbourne here. Yeah,
it's just around the corner. We've got, I think we've still got 2 spaces left. So we've still got room for you if you want to join us, and we would welcome you and invite you to do that. We've got some amazing collaborations and nourishment that's on the cards, which we're going to begin announcing over this next week, and we'd love to invite you to join us.
And to connect with you, Bridget.
Yeah, so it's suburbansandcastles.com, and we've got a film coming up in March, which is The Human Experiment, which so it looks at the impact of chemicals in our environment, and that will be an interesting one, because that's something that I also want to bring consciousness to, because it's so much about what you believe, as well as on the physical level, the impact that things have on us.
But this is the entwinement of health and on a physical as well as a spiritual level.
That's right. Yeah. And to connect with Julie
is thepleasurenutritionist.com. And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavored to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.